Story: Am I the aha for giving my ex-wife a large amount of money I won, despite the anger of my girlfriend? I recently won a fuck you amount of money. I won't say exactly how much, but it's in the millions. It makes me feel funny even typing. It's enough to change the life of myself and my family. The weight of this sudden windfall settled on me like a heavy blanket, both comforting and suffocating. As I sat in my living room, staring at the confirmation email, my mind raced through a kaleidoscope of possibilities. My ex-wife, Sarah, immediately came to mind. She's the mother of our two beautiful children, Ethan and Emma. Sarah is an amazing woman, good to her core in a way that still leaves me in awe. We divorced 6 years ago because of my colossal mistake, an affair with Melissa, my current girlfriend. I was in a dark place, drowning in self-pity and poor choices. I fucked up, plain and simple. The pain I caused Sarah was immeasurable, yet, like a beacon of grace in my storm of selfishness, she allowed me to maintain a relationship with our kids. They mean the world to me, and Sarah's generosity in co-parenting despite her hurt humbles me to this day. She navigated our divorce with a strength and dignity I couldn't fathom, making the process as painless as possible, even though I knew she was shattered inside. Sarah's kindness extends beyond our children. She remains close with my parents, joining them for Sunday dinners and helping with their garden. When we cross paths, she's unfailingly respectful to me, though she understandably refuses any interaction with Melissa. After calling my parents with the news of my lottery win, Sarah was my next call. Her reaction was quintessentially her, genuinely pleased for me, laughing about the possibility of a round-the-world trip for the kids. No bitterness, no requests, just sincere happiness for our children's potential opportunities. In that moment, my resolve crystallized. I knew I needed, to give Sarah a significant portion of my winnings. It wasn't guilt driving this decision, although I carry plenty. It was a desire to tangibly show her that despite my past failures, I recognize her worth. She deserves to know that I care, that I see her sacrifices and strength. Sarah's been working at the public library for years, a job she loves, but one that pays a pittance. With this money, she could pursue her passion for writing, maybe finally open that little bookshop she's always dreamed about. Our kids would have a better life with both parents able to provide experiences and opportunities we've only imagined. I discussed my plan with my parents first. They were enthusiastically supportive, proud even of my decision. My lawyer was surprised, but quickly got on board, helping me navigate the legal intricacies of such a gift. Then came the conversation with Melissa. I'd been dreading it, knowing it wouldn't go well, but the reality was far worse than I'd anticipated. As soon as I broached the subject, she exploded, screaming accusations of disrespect, claiming I must still be in love with Sarah. I tried to explain, I'm not in love with Sarah. We've both changed, grown apart romantically, but of course I still love her as the mother of my children, as my co-parent, as the incredible person she is. Melissa's fury escalated. She paced our bedroom, hurling threats of leaving me, ending our relationship once and for all. As her words washed over me, I felt an unexpected emotion bubbling up. Relief. Pure, unburdened relief. The threats that should have terrified me instead felt like the loosening of chains I hadn't realized I was wearing. In that moment of clarity, I saw our relationship for what it was, a remnant of my lowest point, sustained more by habit than genuine connection. Melissa's reaction to my desire to help Sarah, and by extension my children, threw into sharp relief the vast difference between these two women in my life. As Melissa continued her tirade, my resolve strengthened. I wouldn't be changing my plans. The money provided an opportunity to right some wrongs, to give back to the woman who had every right to hate me but instead chose grace. It was a chance to secure a better future for my children and show them that redemption is possible, even in the face of past mistakes. Standing firm in my decision, watching Melissa's anger spiral, I couldn't help but wonder, am I the ha-ha or not? Comment 1, not the a-hole. If you intended for the money to help out her and your kids, if you only intended to give it to her because you love your ex-wife, then you're a bit of an asshole. Everyone sucks here for making your current girlfriend a plan B. The way she reacted was a little over the top, but to be expected, since you are giving money to another woman that you used to be married to. Otherwise, you do have kids to provide for, and it's none of her business because you're not married and you don't share the money. Just a question, did she know you had a wife when you had an affair with her? Because if she did, then the whole disrespecting her is a load of bullshit, because she did the same thing to your ex-wife. Comment 2, not the ole. At the end of the day, you still shared a lot with your ex-wife, and that probably intimidates your girlfriend. In my eyes, the girlfriend is being extremely childish in this situation, and the fact that you're feeling relieved about her threats says a lot about you too. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate your relationship and just focus on giving your kids the best lives possible now you've got the means to do so. Story. Am I the a-hole for saying I'll be driving myself and paying for my own room on the upcoming family vacation so I won't have to be a babysitter? I-23 was repeatedly stuck playing the part of helper and babysitter on family outings. The weight of this unwanted responsibility had been crushing me for years, a burden I never asked for, but was expected to bear without complaint. It all came to a head last summer during our family vacation to the coast. The trip started with me crammed into the backseat of my parents' car, my personal space already feeling invaded before we even reached our destination. Upon arrival, I discovered that my promised hotel room was to be shared with my sister's 3 rambunctious boys, triplets, after a whirlwind of energy and demands. My sister and her husband, of course, had secured a private room for themselves, leaving me to wrangle their offspring. I had been assured time for my own pursuits on this vacation, a promise that evaporated like sea mist in the morning sun. Instead, my days were filled with the constant din of childish squabbles, sticky fingers tugging at my sleeves, and the never-ending task of keeping 3 young boys entertained and out of trouble. My frustration mounted with each passing day. I voiced my discontent, only to be reminded that I was there for free, as if the cost of the trip somehow negated my right to enjoy it. The one concession to my desires was a brief tour of an art gallery, a passion of mine that I indulge whenever I'm near the coast. But even this small pleasure was tainted by the boys' boredom and complaints, their restlessness echoing through the hushed halls and drawing disapproving glances from other patrons. As the memory of last year's disastrous vacation lingered, I found myself dreading the approach of June and the inevitable family beach trip my parents had planned. When they assumed I'd be joining them under the same arrangements as before, I knew I had to take a stand. I informed them of my decision to drive myself and pay for my own accommodations. The shock on their faces was palpable, their immediate concern focused on the cost. I assured them that my job afforded me the means to cover my expenses, but this logical argument only seemed to fuel their resistance. A barrage of buts followed, each one chipping away at my resolve. I stood firm, recounting the frustrations of the previous year and expressing my desire to experience the vacation as an adult, free from the constraints of childcare duties thrust upon me. Word of my rebellion spread quickly. My sister's reaction was swift and furious. She called, her voice a mixture of anger and panic, accusing me of ruining the vacation by choosing to do my own thing while she struggled with her children. The irony of her complaint was not lost on me. Last year, it was my vacation that had been ruined by being roped into her parental responsibilities. Our conversation escalated, my pent-up frustrations finally boiling over. I reminded her of how I had been treated the year before, how my simple desire to visit an art gallery had been met with derision and resentment. I asserted my right to enjoy my own vacation, to be treated as the grown man I am, rather than an unpaid babysitter. The fallout was immediate. My sister's silent treatment began, a cold war of familial proportions. My parents, ever the peacemakers, redoubled their efforts to persuade me to capitulate, to ride with them and keep the fragile family harmony intact. Their pressure was relentless, a constant barrage of guilt and manipulation. As the days passed, I found my resolve wavering under the weight of their expectations. The thought of their struggle without my assistance gnawed at me, a persistent voice whispering doubts in the quiet moments of the night. Yet, beneath the guilt lay a kernel of resentment, a small, hard nugget of anger at being taken for granted for so long. The situation exploded when my sister, a secret Reddit lurker, stumbled upon my post seeking advice. Her fury reached new heights, compounded by the overwhelming support I received from strangers online. She launched into a tirade about the difficulties of raising triplets, insisting that I, young and single, had an obligation to help her find respite from her constant maternal duties. Despite her renewed assault, I held my ground. My sister, incensed by my continued defiance, escalated the conflict by involving our parents once more. The tension in our family reached a breaking point, with arguments erupting between all parties. The carefully planned vacation crumbled under the weight of long-simmering resentments and unmet expectations. In the aftermath, as accusations flew and tears were shed, I found myself at the center of a family maelstrom. My sister's implications about my lack of a social life stung, adding insult to injury. As I recorded her words and shared them with our parents, I couldn't help but wonder, am I the a-hole or not? Yes, you are. If you'd been 14 in the 1960s, you would have gone right into someone classified as social worker mode essays. Comment 1, not the whole. And at this point, I would personally be saying, okay, you guys have collectively made it very clear that I'm not wanted as adult company, but only as free childcare. I think we would all be better taking a break from that dynamic in the interests of preserving family feelings, and so I will not come on this year's vacation at all. I wish you guys all the best, but I will be vacationing alone somewhere else this year. Also, tell your parents that you can't keep the peace when someone else is responsible for breaking it. Your sister's determined steamrolling of your time and goodwill is not something that you can just lie down and take forever. She is a parent, and it's her job to care for her own children, even on vacation. If someone does her the favor of helping out, then she owes them gratitude for the gift, not taking their help for granted, and assuming she can force them to sacrifice their entire vacation time. No one owes her that sacrifice. And no, she doesn't get to palm the kids off on other people overnight, either. Comment 2, not the but if you're paying for yourself, go somewhere else on your own to make it a hard no to babysitting. Story HAM? I the hole for switching to regular milk to prove my lactose intolerant roommate keeps stealing from me? Me and 2 other guys share an apartment together, and we split all the bills. The only thing we don't split costs on is groceries. Everyone's in charge of buying their own food, and we don't touch whatever doesn't belong to us in the fridge. We put our names on everything so no one gets mixed up. This arrangement had worked well for a while, creating a sense of independence and respect within our shared living space. That is, until the mysterious disappearances began. It started small. A missing container of leftovers here, a rapidly depleting carton of milk there. At first, I brushed it off as forgetfulness on my part. Maybe I had eaten more than I remembered, or perhaps I'd misjudged how much was left. But as the incidents became more frequent, a nagging suspicion grew in the back of my mind. The culprit, I was certain, was my roommate R. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. My other roommate Jake and I carpooled to our early morning shifts, leaving R alone in the apartment before he left for his later work schedule. Without fail, it was during these hours that my food seemed to vanish into thin air. R's own behavior only fueled my suspicions. He was almost comically protective of his own groceries, making a show of pointing out his purchases and warning us not to touch them. The irony was not lost on me. Here he was, guarding his food like a dragon hoarding gold, while helping himself to our provisions. Confrontations with R led nowhere. He'd vehemently deny any wrongdoing, his face a mask of indignation as he accused me of losing my mind. These arguments left a sour taste in my mouth and a growing resentment in my heart. Jake, too, had noticed his food disappearing, though not as frequently as mine. We speculated that R's tastes aligned more closely with my purchases. The final straw came when I found my almond milk, a specific brand I enjoyed for its taste, nearly empty once again. Frustration boiled over, and an idea took root in my mind. It was time to set a trap. A trip to the liquor store yielded a gallon of regular dairy milk. With a mix of anticipation and guilt, I poured out the remaining almond milk and refilled the container with the dairy version. R, being lactose intolerant, would surely face consequences if he helped himself to this decoy. The next day, a Saturday, Jake and I returned from work to find R in a state of fury. His face was flushed, his words sharp, as he recounted being trapped in the bathroom for 40 minutes, racked with digestive distress after using my milk in his protein shake. A sense of vindication washed over me as I calmly replied, "So then you're the one who's been stealing?" The admission I'd been seeking for months finally came, albeit wrapped in a torrent of anger. R confessed to sometimes partaking of my food and milk, but his ire was focused squarely on my deception rather than his own persistent theft. I stood my ground, explaining that this would never have happened if he had simply respected our agreement or, at the very least, owned up to his actions instead of gaslighting me. Jake, witnessing the exchange, couldn't help but find some humor in the situation. He backed me up, agreeing that R had brought this retribution upon himself. In the days that followed, tension hung thick in our apartment. R, his pride wounded and his trust shaken, began a campaign to turn Jake against me. Little did he know, Jake and I had already begun discussing the possibility of finding a new place together, both of us weary of R's antics. As news of the incident spread among our friend group, opinions were split. Some applauded my clever trap, while others admonished me for taking things too far. Their mixed reactions left me pondering the ethics of my actions. I had achieved my goal of exposing R's dishonesty, but at what cost to our living situation and friendships? Reflecting on the chain of events, from the months of theft to the final confrontation, I couldn't help but wonder, am I the whole or not? Comment 1, not the whole. It's your food. You could have put your medicine in it, or even your pet's medication in it. You could have put a laxative in it, or even syrup of ipecac. And I would still say not the whole. When people steal food, lie about it, and don't replace it, they reap what they sow. Food is expensive, especially milk substitutes. Without replacing the food, he was essentially stealing money from your wallet. Comment 2, not the whole. If he steals from you, he should face consequences, especially after you bringing it up to him. Why would he expect you buying and using products that accommodate to his health condition?